Karoline Leavitt issues warnings on tariffs. This is not a negotiation. If this is not a negotiation, then that's definitely an interesting way to negotiate. Let's just say that, because here's the thing. It's going to end up being a negotiation of sorts, guys. I would suspect, at least. Like, once these tariffs go into full place, which they should have been now for almost 20 hours, right? Once they kind of go into full effect, I can imagine that other countries are going to be like, wait a second, hold on. So you're telling me that we've been putting tariffs on them, and now they put tariffs on us? Basically, the same tariffs that you have on us, we're going to put on you off the top. All right. I can imagine how negotiations are going to start kind of coming forward exclusively, because now these countries don't want these tariffs on them, even though they've been tariffing us because, we got all this money and they want it. Right. But they don't want to give us any of theirs. Is that interesting? I want to start seeing, like, U.S. aid, but coming from all these other countries, large scale at least. Because I don't see it at the same rate, at least, as we do. But either way, the point is, I can only imagine that a lot of these countries are going to start coming to the table with some type of plan, let's say, that can mitigate the tariffs that are being levied upon them. Right. So I can imagine. How about this? You give us the same respect we gave you. All right. Or tariffs, mandatory 10%. But all right, let's go and jump to this video immediately. This is a suggestion via Discord. Let's check it out.
President Trump has declared economic independence with sweeping new tariffs on countries around the globe. The president billed it as Liberation Day yesterday and unveiled his reciprocal tariffs line by line on a chart that he carried out. He said it was too windy for the big backdrop they had. So the president says it is about putting America's first and creating a new golden age for American workers.
And guys, we're still lower.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion,
than what they're doing to us.
History. It's our declaration of economic independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. We are finally putting America first.
I like the idea.
Peter Ducey.
I mean, like, listen, if you got a problem with that, then I think you just have a problem with America, bro. We cannot continue to give things away to all these foreign nations for nothing in return, bro. Like, it's just not it's a zero-sum game, bro. We get nothing really from this. Well, we get the feels are good. The feels feel good, guys. That's it. That's probably it, right? That's it. But all right.
Live at the White House. Peter, that getting some reaction, I would imagine today, laying it all out in that ad.
Yes, and Harris, officials here say that President Trump has wanted to do this for a long time, for like a decade at least. And so, because of that, these tariffs are not going to get pulled down as part of some kind of a global negotiation. In fact, quite the opposite.
The president made it clear yesterday this is not a negotiation. This is a national emergency. He's always willing to pick up the phone to answer calls, but he laid out the case yesterday for why we are doing this. And these countries around the world have had 70 years to do the right thing by the American people, and they have chosen not to. They have ripped off American workers. They have taken our jobs overseas. The president is putting that yesterday.
The president himself now says the operation is over. The patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before, make America great again. In Europe, though, leaders are scrambling today, trying to figure out how to soften the blow to their economies.
Right.
The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe.
The president's big...
Bro, just pay for them. Like, do exactly what we have been forced to basically do for the last 70 years. Just, it's fine. You guys got it. It's your turn. Go ahead and give all of your money, basically, to the rest of the world.
Man, in the Rose Garden for Liberation Day had supporters cheering. It had the Marine Band playing. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance. They see Liberation Day and all of these new tariffs as a reason to celebrate despite all of today's red on Wall Street. Harris?
All right. And, you know, Charles Payne had a good take on it today and will all day long now as we continue to watch what the Dow and other markets are doing. And that is, this is a snapshot compared to the big scope of what's coming in terms of your money being invested. Unless, of course, I say you're retiring soon. Peter Ducey, thank you. So, Kaylee, you had some things to say about this.
Yes, so you heard the White House there saying, you know, this is not part of a negotiation. This is here to stay. I firmly believe that is posturing. This is the great deal maker, the great negotiator, and he's someone who understands how to get to a good end result. And with that in mind, you set the posture
100%.
that this isn't going away. These are here to stay. You've had 70 years to negotiate.
Right.
That's what I think this is. The $6 trillion question, as Politico put it, is what's next. I heard Scott Bessent say, look, we have less to lose than these other countries. If in economic textbooks, we are the deficit country. They are the surplus country. The surplus country has more to lose. What that says to me is he knows these other countries have something to lose. In other words, they're going to be pushed to the negotiating table.
Absolutely.
Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez for the Bush administration said, I would assume that these will not be in place in a month, 2 months, definitely not the back half of a year.
Yeah.
I'm in the camp, it's a big negotiation. So is this a
me
negotiation
too.
is my first
Me too.
question. Number two, we have no doubt it's historic. They went big. Stephen Miller said this is the biggest reset of global trade relations in the last 100 years.
I'm fine with
He said
that.
it's the greatest reshoring of American manufacturing in 100 years. I think it's more like 131 years because when the economic analysts look at it, these tariffs are bigger than Smoot-Hawley from the 1930s. These are enormous.
Are they?
They're historic. They're going to reset the American economy. We'll see what happens, but I would not be surprised if the great negotiator has an end game in mind here.
Yeah, guys, 100% though. Rough times are coming though. Guys, just understand that, right? But generally, things have been very good in the United States of America, obviously compared to the rest of the world and how they tend to live and experience life and things like that, right? America, even some of our poorest people are richer than a gigantic swath of the planet, right? So just understand in that context, at least. So we've been doing really good for a really, really, really long time, guys, okay? And I mean an unnecessarily long time compared to others. And I guess so what I'm trying to say here is that things are going to get rough, bro. They have to. We haven't had really bad times in a really long time, and I think we need to that needs to happen for a little bit, guys, just so we can come out of it stronger than we've ever been, period. So before I think Trump got elected fully, how about this? Before he went into the White House, Elon Musk had stated that things are going to get rough, and I agreed fully when he said that. I knew that things were going to get rough before he said that. That's because it has to happen, bro. Like once all of this kind of dies down, the stock market is in fact just going to go right back up, bro, completely. And if you have invested in it, your IRA's there, your 401k, et cetera, you're going to make money, bro.
Well, as you call him, the great negotiator, our president, Donald Trump, one thing I would say, Dr. Sapphire, is that he has sent people out in every agency. I just had on the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, and you know, she's been talking with farmers. Legitimately, they're concerned about their products and what this is going to do for them. I mean, their farming equipment, where does that come from? How big is that tariff on that product?
That's valid.
That sort of thing. And
expensive.
she said they have plenty of time for Trump to look at this and say, we might have to help them out. She said we're months from that, though. The people she's talking to on the ground in the Midwest, they're ready.
Yeah,
they're
so
going to stick by him.
Absolutely. From a very basic standpoint, you can understand the impetus behind these tariffs. You want to bolster U.S. manufacturing. You want to reduce our reliance on, foreign supply chain issues. I mean, we certainly saw our vulnerability during COVID. I've also talked about this even pre-COVID on how reliant we are on foreign countries for our pharmaceuticals, our medical supplies. The reality is 69% of all basic medical supplies comes from outside of the United States, Mexico and China being big exporters. And so from the short term, I worry about what is this going to do for the healthcare industry? Are we going to see higher prices? Are we going to see decreased access to masks, gloves, medical equipment. China is already putting on export controls on some rare earth minerals that we use in nuclear imaging. They've already said they're going to do that. And 40% of all of our generic medications comes out of India. Now, I know that the president has already said that there's a carve-out right now for the pharmaceuticals, but a lot of the ingredients that go into the pharmaceuticals, as well as go into the packaging and manufacturing of the pharmaceuticals, are not part of that carve-out. And while the long-term goal is to get this manufacturing here in the United States, that's wonderful. Will we still have the low prices that are offered from India? Those India generic pharmaceuticals are saving trillions of dollars to U.S. taxpayers for cheaper drugs. So it has to be.
I mean, guys, listen. Or we can just immediately start lowering the price on everything medical. It's already overpriced. Like, it's overpriced in a way that is absolutely astronomical. So to hear someone say that even the generic drugs specifically are cheap, I mean, I get it compared to other things, but they're still unnecessarily expensive compared to other places in the world, right? Just because we can somewhat afford it, that doesn't mean we need to pay it. We're being robbed even by the pharmaceutical and medical industrial complex, guys. That's just a reality here.
More than just tariffs on this. We have to make sure that the supply is there, and we have to make sure it's affordable. And maybe this comes in the form of expanding HSAs, giving tax credits for patients when it comes to their drugs, and continuing the conversation about making drugs affordable.
Well, and your point about the products, if we didn't learn a single thing from the pandemic, it should have been we ought to make our own stuff. So the masks, I can't believe 5 years later we're not making our own masks and gloves. I have to think that what you're talking about, Doctor, we should have a product line in that with USA on it at this point. I'm sure we do.
Yeah, and part of the reason why it's so much cheaper to produce outside is because of the heavy burden and regulations that we've been facing for so many administrations to make things here. That's not right. Why do so many small startups and small businesses realize early on, oh, wow, here's how to make things cheaper? And the whole point is you push costs down to the consumer. So I love that this audit, while it's coming with short-term pain, is supported by major unions that up until now have enjoyed a totally unquestioned loyalty back and forth from the Democrat Party, because the reality is up until now, it's just been assumed, but it's not really been working. I got an email yesterday that my benefits card had too much money on it, so I either needed to stop contributing or I needed to pay it down. The point is that someone's auditing that. Why have we had such a blasé, obfuscated, opacity that we've accepted for so long up at the government, when with our own finances, we go with a fine-tooth comb, rightly so? The dependency of other countries on us, we've provided ways for them to extricate themselves from these sinking ships, and it involves that communication, the synthesis, but in the short term, to further President Trump's analogy, physical therapy is short term. This was an operation. It's successful. We're going to go through rehab, and everything is going to be better than it was.
David, something popped in.
Exactly. Like, the last part of this was absolutely correct. I'm not specifically sure I 100% agree with the concept of removing all types of regulations. Some of these regulations are the reason why, guys, we live older than 60 now. You get what I'm saying here? We need some type of regulations to make sure that we, and check some checks and balances at least, to make sure that we're still doing things that is conducive to actual human life, okay? I hear what you're saying. The last part of it was a banger. It was great. I loved it. But the regulation part, I don't know about all of that. All right, we still need some regulations.
Into my head as Emily was talking.
Maybe not so much.
I'm married to this guy who loves sports. He watches anything that has a ball in it. And so we've been talking, about an NIL. This is kind of an NIL around the globe for USA. Anything that we have our name on, even more of an impetus to make our own stuff. Sell it here, sell it abroad.
Well, to Kaylee's earlier point and to your point, both can exist. You can have posturing and you can have policy that has short-term and long-term effects. It's too much. It's massive. I've spent the last 24 hours or so just trying to go through the trade report, which is 397 pages by country, and I didn't get through it. So imagine the scope of this, and that's our trade imbalances with other nations. You posture, you negotiate, but also part of this is to reset, because you have to have a fairer field of play, and you have to have that play, to use the NIL analogy, or else you don't have a game on. In America, we need to do better. We need to not be bound to things like masks, for example, or nitrile gloves or others, which can be made here with very little changes to some of these corporations. So being hostage to other nations is not a long-term strategy. And if you're going to bring prices down, you have to have a cumulative effect or a cumulative strategy, not just whether the price of that drug and source materials comes from India.
All right, fascinating.
Okay.
Discussion.
Hey, everyone.
Well, listen. So you guys have sent me a lot of these things from like whatever this is called, like the 5. I don't know what this is called, bro. I'm sorry. Outside of this, I don't watch the news like ever. I just read books and and science reviews and things. But the thing is this is probably one of the better panels that you guys have sent me. I think that every single person came here with as much logic as they possibly could, kind of deliver, and I appreciate that here. The last guy here at the end, incredibly valid. But I want to go back and point out the concept of getting rid of, like, things that keep us alive. There needs to be checks and balances on, like, everything. But at the rate that they are, I don't know, bro. I feel like that's probably too much. Probably too much. It feels like it's too much. I can imagine running some type of corporation that involved an entire, like a gigantic amount of regulation. I can imagine how tricky that is. 1 month, this is okay. Next month, this is okay. Example, I collect guns, right? So I remember when the ATF was basically going crazy over like pistol braces. And they're like, that's a stock because people are not wrapping it around their hand. Remember that ridiculousness. So you go to the store, you buy it, it comes with it, and everything is completely fine. And then literally the next month, they're like, if you have that, you're a felon. And I'm just like, what? My record is spotless, bro. What are you talking about? You making me a felon overnight? That's craziness. And then I'm glad that never worked out. I'm glad they failed. All right. But all right. Listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly. If you guys are new here, please like and subscribe and just let me know what you guys think in the comments, guys.